Hello and welcome to Banking Transform, the top podcast in retail banking. I'm your host, Jim Maroos, owner and CEO of the Digital Banking Report and co-publisher of the Financial Brand. Our expectations of what a bank is and how we will engage with financial services has changed immensely over the past several years. And that change will only happen faster in the future. It's indisputable that technology has been the driving force behind this change. As the industry gets ready for Money 2020 in Amsterdam, it's good to assess how technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, the blockchain, cloud computing, Internet of Things, robotics, and biometrics are reshaping banking as it is today, enhancing customer experiences and paving the way for new business models. I'm excited to have John Duigenan, General Manager of Financial Services and IBM Distinguished Engineer from IBM Technology on the Banking Transform podcast. We'll be discussing how new technologies will be impacting the future of banking and how banks must become more future ready. Innovation and business-led transformation is critical for the future growth of banks and credit unions worldwide. To remain competitive and relevant, every bank must embrace disruption and strategically build a better digital ecosystem, not a bigger bank, for modern technologies. But technologies by themselves will not make banking future ready. Leadership must also transform their legacy thinking to capture the potential value of modernization. So, John, before we get started, can you share a little bit about yourself and your role at IBM Technology, as well as how IBM works with banks and financial institutions worldwide today?
Thank you so much, Jim, and I'm delighted to be with you. I'm the General Manager of the financial services industry in IBM Technology. And I'm a general manager who also happens to be an IBM Distinguished Engineer with a long history as a technologist in IBM, and prior to that, working in financial services. My role in IBM is to ensure great alignment between the products and capabilities that IBM offers and the needs of our clients. And I'm relentless in pursuing that alignment and helping our clients be successful with IBM Technology.
You know, it's interesting, John. I go way back in banking, way too far back. But IBM's always been there. And it's interesting to me how IBM continually evolves as an organization, become and stay relevant, not just in financial services, but beyond financial services. Within IBM, and you've been with the firm for quite a while, how is that possible? How does IBM stay relevant to the banking industry, especially as you look at the technologies that are involved?
Well, I think we walk in our clients' shoes. We have a very long history of partnerships with our clients. Some of them extend to over 100 years. You'd be amazed to know. We know financial services extremely well. We live and breathe it. That's our mission, selling the best technology that's relevant to our clients. And so we ground our portfolio in the capabilities that enterprise clients, regulated enterprise clients need, such as IBM infrastructure, especially our Z16 platform, the mainframe, the new Z16, which is over 50 years old now. Correction. The Z platform is over 50 years old. The latest incarnation, Z16, is ready for AI with the new Telum chip, providing on-chip AI acceleration. It's the only platform with out-of-the-box quantum-safe encryption, a major cybersecurity risk advantage that regulated clients, especially banks, financial services, insurance company need. And the Z platform's also ready for hybrid cloud with OpenShift running on the platform, enabling those APIs and microservices to run right next to those transactions that have been running for years. So what looks like a platform that's been around for a very long time is actually the most modern technology. Alongside that's our software portfolio, and that's extremely relevant for IBM's financial services clients. Rock solid capabilities around data and AI, business automation, integration, network automation, and security. They run anywhere in any cloud service or on-prem, and they're offered as a service. So despite an incredibly long heritage of working in the industry, our offerings are some of the most modern and most innovative.
It's interesting because while this sounds kind of like an IBM commercial, the reality is IBM is really unique in the marketplace that they are always on the cutting edge of what's happening. So while banking is playing as an industry more of a catch-up role, IBM not only provides the massive core technologies, but also the what I'm going to call the mini technologies that will enable organizations to really make change happen at speed and at scale for the little solutions that are integrated within their own core. So as banks and fintech firms and large tech firms descend upon Amsterdam, what key topics do you expect will dominate the conversation on the convention floor?
Well, we're all excited about being in Amsterdam for Money 2020. It should be a really terrific event. I think Money 2020 is really interesting because of the way it gathers such a broad ecosystem of industry participants, and then it gathers them together, and it really emphasizes innovation. I love that about Money 2020. There's a couple of broad themes that I think will be top of mind this year, not only from a US focus, but also the global lens. There's a massive focus on the economic conditions. They're tightening. Yeah. And alongside those economic conditions, there are all the risks in the system right now. Certainly, for the small and mid-sized institutions, we're seeing that happening, and it's so concerning to watch. That's driving new risk posture in the industry, and it's also going to drive further industry consolidation.
Go ahead.
I see a further emphasis on the establishment of industry platforms and standards. Platforms and ecosystems are just so valuable in the way that they incorporate or bring banking services directly into industries or other industries' business processes. So we can think about any industry where payment or money moves and how the bank is no longer separate from those business processes, but directly incorporated them into them via APIs and the platform-based ecosystems. All of those services are fueled by hybrid cloud technologies. And last and not least by a long way, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some length, you like all of us, see the news and the world is abuzz with AI and generative AI. That's super exciting. Yeah. It's a topic in every single boardroom and beyond. And I fully expect AI to be a starring role in Amsterdam at Money 2020.
It's interesting, John, because as I look at going to Amsterdam and being part of the partnership with IBM at the event, it's really interesting because we have greater opportunities and in many ways greater risks than ever before at a time when economic uncertainty and risk really play a role in saying how far do organizations or how far can organizations go. While organizations are looking at their investments, they really have to prioritize. And at the same time, they have the fear of missing out on new technologies, as you mentioned, generative AI being one. What should be on the top of the priority list for financial institutions in 2023? And I know all of them are at different points in the digital transformation, overall landscape, but overall, as a bank or as a financial institution, what do they have to prioritize to make sure they've got right now?
So I think this is a precursor to a technology conversation, but I'd say that in order to be successful, two things are important right now. One, laser focused on ROI, right? There's all kinds of programs that happen for technology's sake. Can't do that under this constrained situation. You got to be laser focused on the why. Am I generating new business? Am I taking out expense? And equally, the other giant aspect here is stakeholder alignment inside these firms. We see so much trouble and angst in the system when clients don't have the alignment of senior stakeholders around the core mission. And so that's a massive issue. And there are many new techniques emerging around how these firms do product management and how they run technology programs. And certainly hybrid cloud is there to help that. But it's being laser focused on the why and ensuring that modernization is done, for example, to drive a real business outcome rather than some arbitrary outcome.
It's interesting, John, through the years, until relatively recently in history, the ROI question was really about how do you take expenses out? But
Yes.
we're seeing more and more organizations realizing that it's about bringing revenues in. It's about doing things differently and building new business models that really look at revenue opportunities that may be even outside the organization, which again takes technology to drive that. And as you brought up so eloquently, the importance of making sure there's alignment in the executive suite, which has always had, you look over the last 20 years, they've avoided a lot of, challenging times and done very well. And that sometimes can get make you a little bit passive. And it's really, as you said, changing the mindset, changing the culture, and changing in some cases the back office automation to make it so the organization can actually be digitized. What do you see as the biggest challenge in financial services right now with regard to integrating some of these new technologies? Now, you mentioned them a little bit about the whole issue of the legacy thinking, but what gets in the way of a clean implementation in general when you're looking at new technologies?
So there's a whole regulatory aspect to it, Jim. To begin with, that's very significant because regulators want to ensure that firms are behaving responsibly, that they're building software responsibly, and that software runs in a way that's reliable and not locked in to specific services in a way that workload can be portable. So we see a ton of regulation, especially in Europe, around that, and we can see that breaking out even more around the world. I think the other issues that I see most of all are that there are so many organizational silos in firms that it makes running any kind of innovation very, very complex. So these aren't necessarily technical issues or technology issues, although technology issues clearly help break down silos, but they're more organizational and political. When we can break down those silos, then it comes down to how do we architect for efficiency? How do we architect in such a way that we're not driving some giant 30-year program, but we're delivering value, incremental value quickly so that the ROI cases actually do close. So it's about how do we build for a reimagined experience? How do we ensure that ESG is baked into our products? How do we ensure that our products are resilient and that we take advantage of new modernization approaches like new ways of working, new ways of decision making, new ways of operating? Those are how I see firms approaching this, Jim.
So when you look at all this, technology becomes simply the foundation upon which a lot of other things have to be looked at, and those actually drive the success of the technologies more than anything else. You've written quite a bit, and IBM has written quite a bit on the need for new experience and talent that understands future technologies. But more than that, more than just a technology person, they have to understand the impact on, as you mentioned, ESG and customer experience, things of this nature. How do you envision this war for talent playing out? Or do you see organizations really doubling down on the investment on talent that they already have to make them more well-rounded beyond the technical aspect of what they're doing?
It's very hard to speak about that in general terms, Jim, because wherever you are in the world, the talent marketplace is different.
Right.
I've spent a lot of time in Asia Pacific recently, and the market there is very much localized. In the US, it's different, but talent is concentrated for the most part, around the large cities. And so firms have to be aware of this. I see a couple of successful approaches playing out. And one of the areas where this is especially important is in the notion of mainframe skills. Mainframe skills are perceived in some senses incorrectly to be old fashioned. And so it can sometimes be hard to bring new people into that world. We've worked with clients to build modernization programs specifically around the talent. And in doing that, we sit very experienced developers alongside very new developers. and build cross-pollination of skills in both directions. That goes alongside with a product like the mainframe, being able to run all of that existing code, some of it 50, 60 years old, and code in all of the new programming languages running in containers and microservices. And so and using the new tool chains, the new DevOps tool chains on that platform. So we work through some of these skills and talent and culture issues by really bringing people together and helping them be fulfilled both on existing and new skills.
When you look at the bringing together of people, I'm seeing, I don't know if you're seeing, a whole lot more acceptance of collaboration with third-party providers.
Oh, yeah.
Even when they have core technology partnerships, organizations are stepping outside of those to find those partners that can implement a solution that is very specific to a need of that organization very quickly and very much on a scalability platform. Are you seeing that as well, where a lot of outside organizations are being brought in to make it so that these organizations aren't all building from scratch or asking their core providers to do all the work?
Jim, it's a must. In 2023, that's a must. It's a given, right? IBM's all in as part of our ecosystem. We love our clients to work with IBM Consulting. We'll help them work with any and all of their services partners, because for them to be successful with IBM Technology, they need to be able to do that with their chosen partner. Their chosen partner could be AWS and Microsoft with Azure as cloud providers. We're all in on those partnerships. It could be with any of the major US-based or international services providers. And equally, you spoke a little bit about ecosystems. Another aspect to that, and another area where we get some leverage or acceleration, is around the standards-based platforms. Because having standards-based platforms enables a talent pool that's skilled. It also enables substitutable architectural choices. So where I could use one component and potentially have other choices around which component I use if everyone's speaking the same APIs. And so an example of that, I guess, is Swift APIs and ISO 20022 message formats are one example. Another great example in our industry around the BIAN APIs, the Banking Industry Architecture Network, and the work that they're doing to standardize and describe domain-specific banking functions and the kind of formats and flows of those business operations. Having standards like that adopted across a broad ecosystem of partners absolutely helps all of our clients, IBM's clients and our services providers, mutual clients, and our independent software vendors' clients to all come together, work together for the successful outcomes of our banking financial services clients.
It's interesting as I look at these collaborations that are going on right now, and I visited quite a few financial institutions individually, but also quite a bit at recent conferences. And it's really amazing how some very small, relatively small organizations are able to do amazing things now that everything is scalable. Everything is solution based, and organizations are moving forward. We always talked about the big semi versus the pickup truck as an analogy, but the reality is there's some amazing things being done by some of the smallest organizations. And when they talk about the survival of the fittest, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out when a lot of the new innovations are being done at the biggest side because they have the money, and at the smallest side because they have the ability to pivot on a dime. And it's very exciting to see, at least for me, to see these organizations thinking out of the box. You mentioned it earlier. Yeah, you mentioned earlier, John, and it's the elephant in the room. Everybody's chatting or talking about ChatGPT and generative AI. It's interesting because AI was on everybody's mind before this, but it's taken on a whole new perspective as of November 30th of last year. Can you put recent developments a little bit into context for financial institutions? What is the IBM position on the approaches that are possible, and how should bank leaders today be thinking about these new technologies, and what emerging case studies have you seen?
So, thank you very much for asking on this one. I think we've been working in AI as IBM since the 1950s,
Right.
and have pioneered much of the scientific research in the space. So I couldn't be more thrilled. I couldn't be more excited that this topic is front and center in the public conversation. I think that's amazing. That said, I see businesses being very overwhelmed by this topic. It's a topic in every single CEO suite. And I think firms are really unprepared and unsure how to profit from the technology. While everyone's interested, there's great uncertainty. I think there's another side to this also, Jim, which is that, like any technology going through very rapid development, it can be hazardous. AI can be very hazardous.
We've already seen that in many cases, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for a business. Developed in the wrong way, we see AI being frivolous and, at worst, plain dangerous. It can be wrong and produce toxic results. It can be infused with extreme bias. It's not explainable. And so I'd start by saying there that this just for businesses, while this is incredible consumer level technology and transformative, for businesses, there are just too few rules of the road. Now, I see businesses needing AI that's very accurate, predictable, scalable, adaptable. If you can't trust the results of AI, don't do it.
Right.
The other thing I think is so important here is that a lot of organizations already have experience with machine learning and AI, but they've really struggled to scale that, and especially scale it quickly across multiple clouds. AI needs to be based on models that can be easily adapted to new use cases and scenarios. And the power of the foundational models in particular are going to push us into a new era of AI for business. Foundational models are pre-trained on massive amounts of data, unlabeled data, which is less expensive to prepare, cuts the costs of training. And these models, once they're built, can be adapted to existing use cases 10 to 100 times faster than the previous approaches. So we're entering a really exciting phase, and firms existentially need to get ready and work with a firm that understands AI in the context of the specific needs of a regulated enterprise. We're one of those firms that can do that.
You know, it's interesting, John, because you really look at it. ChatGPT and generative AI is really just directionally an extension upon which financial institutions especially should have been using AI to begin with. And we talk about, certainly there's a risk and fraud issues, but more importantly, we've been talking about personalization and engagement for quite some time. And what I'm seeing, at least in the marketplace, is organizations have been using AI successfully, but it's been very much within the organization. It comes out in great reports. It comes out in great research, things of this nature. But it's that final mile. It's deploying it so the customer feels it. I get frustrated as a consumer knowing what's possible with all the information my financial institution has, that they don't talk to me as an individual that they know very well, but they don't show that they know very well. And I think what we're really going to see with ChatGPT and the next phase of AI, and with IBM's help, is really working on that last mile, making it so the consumer and the small business and the corporation feels the impact of AI and machine learning. Because up till now, there's very few organizations, if any, that are doing a good job of personalizing the experience on my behalf, looking out for me and showing empathy. We're talking a good game, but we deploy it terribly, if at all. And
I agree.
That's, I think, the organizations that can do that first and best. I mean, I think some of the fintechs have done it, but it's very much in a small box. But when consumers are exposed to things like Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, all the Uber, all these organizations that take the information and make it better for me, that's the expectation that financial institutions are going to be under. And eventually, the consumer's going to call them on it. And
no question.
And speaking of that, just in the last few days, actually, IBM announced the launch of Watson X at its annual client meeting, which is extraordinarily exciting. We all know a little bit about Watson, but Watson X is a whole new game. Can you tell us a little bit about what Watson X is and put it into perspective as to how it's going to impact global banking?
Thank you, Jim. The Watson X platform enables collaboration on a single workbench to build and refine machine learning and foundational models. That's its purpose. It's going to launch with 3 product sets. First of all, Watson X.ai, a new generation enterprise studio for AI builders to train, validate, tune, and deploy traditional machine learning and new generative AI capabilities powered by foundation models through an open and intuitive user interface. So the studio is at the core of this. The Watson X AI library is going to include models, open source models, from including Hugging Face, a leader in this space on open models. And that's very much in harmony with IBM's ecosystem approach that I outlined earlier. Watson X.data is a fit-for-purpose data store because we know that clients' data now exists in many, many places across all sorts of services, but most of those services are using a common standard. So Watson X.data will allow access to those standards-based data repositories and do so in a governed way that is specific for driving AI workloads. And Watson X governance is the end-to-end toolkit that will encompass data governance, such as data model description and lineage, and AI governance, such as explainability, transparency, and bias. And so these are the new capabilities that IBM's providing in this space. We expect there to be a huge applicability for generative AI in financial services, specifically in the realm of digital labor as one example. So imagine expressing requests in natural language and having those requests orchestrated and performed through one of those open ecosystems of API services. Think about the way that contracts or analysis reports could be summarized by generative AI, and think about the kind of contracts and documents that generative AI can create. So those are simple use cases that will be front and center right from the get-go with these new capabilities from Watson X.
So I'm maybe oversimplifying this a little bit, but IBM partnered with Bank of America on the development of a cloud-based platform that took care of a lot of what I'm going to call the general questions that every institution has to ask when they implement a cloud solution. And you made it, that partnership made it so that organizations didn't have to go through, 80% of the stuff they went through that every organization has to go through, that the answers are all the same. Do you see Watson X being able to do this for banking, where you mentioned contracts, things of this nature? So much of what the banking world does is consistent across the entire industry, but every institution does it for themselves. Do you see a whole banking component of Watson X being able to be generated that answers the general questions faster and easier than ever before?
No question about that. Whether IBM develops it, or whether our ecosystem develops it, It doesn't matter. But the language of banking and the processes of banking, the languages of capital markets, the language of insurance can be described and captured in generative models and foundation models. So I fully expect to see that. I'd love to see that happen in an open source way so that every institution, we see the industry reinventing wheels all the time. Why do they do that?
Oh, every institution. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's half the battle, is that we keep on telling people, by the way, 12 institutions are doing exactly what you want to do, but you're not doing it because of an old legacy thought process or process
That's
overall.
right.
And this really can take us to a new level. But what's really interesting as we look at just what's happened with ChatGPT and generative AI is the speed at which this can happen. I mean, something like a Watson X concept could have been out there before in a non-AI format, and it would have taken years to get our answer. This is something that the answer can come by next quarter, can it? In many cases.
It will. It will. It has to. We have to. We have to enable, as IBM, we need to enable our institutions to run at the speed of thought, at the speed of innovation, at the speed of creativity. And you're right. If you keep doing things the old way, you'll never unleash yourself to take advantage of these innovations. Now, I said earlier that we need our firms to take advantage of these innovations responsibly and ethically and within a regulatory context. But our goal is to absolutely unlock that innovation in our clients with Watson X.
You know, John, when you talk about Watson X, it in my mind, I may be oversimplifying it. It sounds very much like the collaboration you had with IBM and Bank of America on cloud technology, the development of a cloud platform, a cloud solution that financial institutions wouldn't have to rethink. I'm going to call it 80% of what they do when it's always the same for each financial institution, giving organizations the ability to, what I'm going to call, start at the third turn as opposed to doing the entire race. Am I making it oversimplified, or is this what Watson X eventually could do for the banking industry?
So let's take this in two parts. First of all, you spoke about the collaboration between IBM and Bank of America, a great client of ours. The result of that collaboration was the IBM Cloud for Financial Services. And the reason why that capability matters is because we took Bank of America's and a broader set of industry requirements around the specific controls needed for a cloud service and packaged that in a standardized way that manifested those controls in a way that's very inherent to our cloud service, enables them to be monitored on a continuous and enforced on a continuous basis. And the net benefit of doing so was that it becomes much easier and faster, specifically faster, simpler for firms and their ISV partners to onboard onto our cloud service, knowing that many of the risk factors have already been managed and taken completely off the table. So that's the result of an industry collaboration with clients. And following Bank of America, other clients came on board, and we continue to innovate. If we think about how we do that with Watson X, it's about assembling a similar collective of industry stakeholders. And so the most likely area where that would happen, Jim, is around building foundational models, specifically as it relates to the industry language and vernacular and business processes. And I couldn't be more excited about the possibility that will deliver, because that will foster great reuse, and it will prevent this notion of everything being reinvented from scratch every single time.
Well, it's interesting because I'll take the GPS systems that we're all familiar with, that because of crowdsourcing allows the GPS system to tell us how to get to the destination we want quicker, easier, avoiding detours and challenges in the road and taking advantage of shortcuts. This is what Watson X can do for financial services, while at the same time standardizing what is legal, what isn't legal, because the compliance and the regulatory environment will be built in because of the crowdsourcing capabilities. And what really is amazing, even when you just go back a couple of years to the cloud technology you built with IBM, is that this iteration of the innovation is going to happen so much faster. I mean, You look at just what's happened with ChatGPT, and you look and you go, what can be possible with Watson X is just so exponentially faster and more scalable than anything we've ever imagined.
There's a key point about this that I feel compelled to make, right? Because it speaks to that shift that you spoke of. We've come, if we sort of look back in the rearview mirror, it was AI was something that was added to existing applications. So it was plus AI. So applications plus AI. The shift that we're seeing for future applications is that the AI is at the heart and that the platform services are the plus. So it's a shift from AI being an afterthought to AI being the centerpiece of an application. That's a radical transformative shift. It's for sure the way that new applications are going to be created. And so I think it represents an incredible shift and an incredible opportunity. And the leaders and the innovators in this space, especially the leading institutions that take advantage of this and gain experience and learn very quickly, they're automatically going to have competitive advantage.
You know, it's interesting, some private conversations I've had recently, and we look at what's going on in the whole AI space, and you're a distinguished engineer and you're a technologist. Is the technology right now going so fast that it's very challenging for the technologists to keep up with the pace of change?
There's no question about that. There's no question that it's difficult. But those of us who love doing this, living and breathing it, we're constantly in our books. We're constantly playing with code. We're constantly experimenting. I'm proud of the fact, Jim, just to speak personally for a moment, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm an IBM general manager that still writes code. Because if I become distant from all of this, and if I become the person who only ever uses PowerPoint, why do you need me anymore? So I want to stay close to that technology.
Oh, I know that one. You quickly become irrelevant, but it's very interesting because when we look at this, you look at the Watson X capabilities, the ability for multiple organizations to help build this and improve upon it at scale and at speed. No single person needs to have all the answers. I mean, the potential is enormous, and it's so exciting because you've provided a sounding board, a platform, and an area of gathering in a virtual world that allows us to have iterative innovation and iterative advances in technology that were not possible before, and to deploy them. That's going to be the key. You know, we've talked about it before, but it's great to have the capability to do it. But will you have the organization culture to deploy it in a way that the consumer is going to feel the value add?
I think the consumer seeing value from this is at the very heart of it. You spoke earlier about your experiences with firms. I won't name and shame anyone here. I've had a 20-year banking relationship in the US since I arrived, and one of my banks still considers me a student, despite the fact that I've never been a student in the US. Imagine the kind of customer experience that I enjoy as a result of that. So this notion of using AI to take friction out of a customer experience and make it profound and profoundly relevant to the needs of each and every client, that will become hugely important. And it goes beyond the current approaches that most institutions have been using into a much deeper level of customer understanding. And if you understand your customers really, really well, doesn't matter whether they're consumers or giant businesses, doesn't matter. Every area of banking and financial services will be impacted by this. If you understand your customers really, really well, the way that you can differentiate and the kind of stickiness and value you can build into the relationship will be unstoppable.
You know, it's interesting because the risk that currently exists, and is happening every day, is that consumers, small businesses, corporations don't have to close their account when they're not happy. They simply go and open a new account someplace else where they feel like an organization understands them better. I've done that with my business account with PayPal. I've done on my consumer account with different organizations, including SoFi and Acorns and Robinhood. And the reality is we've got to stop that silent attrition as legacy financial institutions. And the only way to do it is to give a level of experience and of engagement that is different than we've ever seen before. So, John, as we try to wrap this up a little bit, What do organizations have to do today to be prepared for what's going to happen tomorrow?
I think I bring this to one fundamental. I think there are a lot of things that firms can do, but I would focus on one thing as being the key change maker right now. I think, in my mind, hybrid and hybrid technologies are the key step. I think that most firms at this point have realized that an on-prem only or a public cloud only approach isn't viable going forward.
Right.
They need to benefit from both. And so as we think about this, I said earlier, very early on, this is about thinking about why. Why do I need something? Not the what is it, but why do I need it? Why do I need AI to deliver new kinds of customer service? Why do I need hybrid? It's because I want to unlock innovation at an unbridled pace. I want to simplify operations by standardizing, and I want to benefit from an open community of contributors and innovators, creating a platform and an ecosystem effect. So when I think about why hybrid, it unlocks value, it speeds innovation, and it simplifies delivery and the cost of delivery. When I think about the what of hybrid, it's that combination of open platforms, open standards. It's the combination of fit for purpose workloads that can run anywhere. It's consistent security, and hybrid applications always include an approach to data and AI. What's an application without data? What will an application be without AI in the future? So as we think about the technology building blocks, it's essential to do that thinking in the context of embracing new ways of thinking and new ways of working. The architectural the architectural constructs that underpin the new ways of thinking and working are APIs, microservices, containers, orchestration, DevSecOps, site reliability engineering, AI ops, and the future of AI platforms like watsonx. How we run that and how we build applications using application accelerators for automation, data and AI, security, integration, and so on. That's the layer above that. But with the Red Hat portfolio and our Cloud Paks and watsonx, we're unlocking the future of hybrid for customers and clients today, and doing that across all of the IBM platforms, including Z16, the mainframe, but also enabling all of that capability to run in any of the clouds and in any on-prem data center or hosting center or at the edge. So for me, alongside AI, hybrid technologies are the biggest key to unlocking value. They really unlock value in a transformative way. One example, if we think of a monolithic bank or a monolithic firm using the old ways of working, Jim, they might release a banking platform twice a year, 4 times a year, maybe even 12 times a year. That's not innovation at the speed of thought, right? I can think of institutions that release 200 changes a day. Why are they doing that? Because they're using hybrid techniques and tools, hybrid architecture.
Yep.
Those firms that can do 200 times a day, even, sometimes firms say to me, but John, I don't need 200 times a day, right? And I say, I know, but you surely need more than 12 times a year. So how are you going to unlock that? So I think that's the compelling example for me, and being able to innovate at speed, at will, but also doing that in a way where my costs aren't exploding, and that my access to skills, talent, and a new culture, new ways of working, new ways of decision-making, new AI capabilities are all inherently available to me. That's so exciting for me as a technologist and a business person working in financial services.
It's interesting, John, to wrap this up, is that you said it so well, and it's sticking in my mind, is that at the end of the day, I don't want to build banking the way the bank across the street built banking. or the way that some of the biggest banks in the country or world build banking, or the smallest financial institutions build banking. The first thing I have to do is understand my why. And you said it so well, because as I think about the why, that can't be a PR term. It's got to be something you live to. And if you understand your why really well, then you won't get completely overwhelmed by the massive new technologies that are out there, because you'll be using those technologies to solve for your why as opposed to the whys of everybody else's out there. And again, with AI and with the technology out there, with hybrid cloud, with blockchain and everything else that's going on, you can solve for a very specific why. And those organizations that are doing that are being very successful today because they stick to what they believe in as opposed to trying to be everything. And, we have the ability to not only to serve individual customers, but companies like IBM and others have the ability to serve individual financial institutions that have maybe a potentially vastly different objective and mission than the bank next door. John, This has been a treat. Your enthusiasm for the industry, your enthusiasm for technology, your knowledge of what IBM brings to the table, and how IBM can collaborate with other organizations to make them and you better in the new What's Next world is extraordinarily exciting. And I can guarantee you, I got to get a promise from you, I want you on the show again.
No problem. Anytime, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Banking Transformed, the winner of 3 international awards for podcast excellence. If you enjoy what we're doing, please take some time to give us a review on your favorite podcast app. In addition, be sure to catch my recent articles in the Financial Brand and the research we're doing for the Digital Banking Report. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcasts. A special thank you to our senior producer, Leah Haslitz, audio engineer, Sean Roll Hoffman, and video producer, Will Pritz. I'm your host, Jim Roos. Until next time, remember, emerging technologies are continuing to pave the way for a better, customer-centric revolution in banking.